Hello everyone. Wow, we have quite a full house here. Thanks. I would like to give an applause to the organizer. They organized the content of the panels really well. Shopping has mentioned the failure, also the illusion about valuation of the startups, and Bobby have taken you through the history of the Vietnamese startup ecosystem. So for this panel, we are going to storytelling. So first of all, the panelists, please give a brief introduction of you and your firm, what you do. Start with Dominic first. Now you have a round of introduction in the morning, but please to the new attendees.
So I think some of you already heard me talking in the morning. I work for the Asian Development Bank. It's a large development bank that invests for development impact. I work in the venture arm of the ADB, so we focus on supporting, scaling early stage companies with technology-enabled business models that we believe can scale for impact.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dung. I am a representative of GENESIA Ventures in Vietnam. We GENESIA Venture was founded in 2016, actually by our founder who was used to be the cyber agent around the world. So yeah, they are the cyber agent mafia, and we came back to Vietnam more actively. So officially we started our representative in Vietnam from this October. Yes, so this is actually my first debut in Vietnam. Nice to meet you guys.
Hi, my name is CHENG. I'm based out in Taiwan, in Taipei, and I probably control the least amount of money on this panel. And what I've done is we've started and have been running a reward-based crowdfunding platform since 2012. And we've used that as a filter or a silo to help them scale and build, or actually pay the right candidates to invest and build. And from there, we've done quite a few different interesting things in several sectors. Yeah.
One thing I learned about storytelling is that it's really intriguing to start with a point of time, an event. So we will start with an event when you first started your venture, your business. So for Dominic, for ADB Ventures, or also for NBI previously, the initiative across the Mekong region countries. With ADB, you are supposed to create a lot of impacts, but I suppose that there might have been a lot of concept about now I need a lot of money, I need capital to expand and to acquire users. So what was your the hardship in persuade the ecosystem to believe in creating impact and enlarge the initiative?
Yeah, so when people hear ADB, they think we have a lot of money, which is not always necessarily a good thing either, because you know, that's all we have. That means you don't really have anything. And when I first was trying to get involved in supporting the ecosystem in Vietnam, I was also struggling initially on, well, what's the role for ADB? It's a big, giant development bank, and there were already a lot of great programs in Vietnam that were doing great things supporting ecosystem. I think you saw in Bobby's presentation. We started around 2014, but the last 3 years things have exploded. You've got like so many more corporates involved, investors, seed, mentor programs. So I was trying to figure out, like, well, I've got this big organization behind me, but what role can we play? And I think in the end, what I settled on was that it's the network that is behind ADB. It's the big corporate network. So, you know, we work with hundreds of utilities, hundreds of banks, large agricultural corporates, and all of these guys are looking for technology solutions. And they're traditional industries like agriculture, energy that haven't yet been disrupted. And I saw this energy in the startup ecosystem and all this energy on the investment side, even government, but I didn't see as much involvement of the traditional industry. So then what we've been trying to do is to plug in that traditional industry and intersect it with the vibrant, new emerging tech industry, which I think is a win-win for both sides, because you're driving efficiencies and new business models in these traditional industries that wasn't possible before, and for the startups to create business opportunity. Maybe the last thing I'll say, again, sometimes when you mention impact, and of course ADB is about impact, and when I approach people again about ADB, they think number one, you've got money, and then number two, they think we're only interested in social enterprises, which of course, personally I am very interested in supporting social enterprises, but in the end it's also about business. We can't scale for impact unless they're great business models that can scale. So there's this misperception that like ADB should be only supporting investing in small local scale social enterprises, but no, we're also looking for really scalable, successful businesses that can grow scale, but for impact as well as for commercial KPI. Thanks.
At the same time, can you debunk the myth of being a really large, established and traditional organization, then the process of decision making and also approval of anything would be slow?
So yeah, that's very true, because the way we've been designed is to finance $500 million LNG, liquefied natural gas projects or large infrastructure project financing. So we're slow by nature. So what we had to do for the venture fund arm, which is actually still ongoing process now, is to create a sandbox. So we've gone to our board to get a waiver on our existing investment processes and to create a completely separate investment committee parallel process, which is more in line with the venture industry. I think for an organization like ADB, the financial risk of investing in startups is such a small part of our portfolio, is not the big deal, but of course, reputational risk, integrity issues, environment safeguards we set up, and that all is really, really the key for ADB to play the role here. We can't compromise our standards on safeguards, environment, and integrity on any investment, no matter how big or small. But subject to that, I believe we can be faster than we have in the past. Yep.
So how has the sandbox going so far?
It's, well, fingers crossed. We're going to our board on the 8th of December, so I hope to share really good news next year, but I think it's looking good and we hope to launch next year in May. Yeah.
And continuing to touch on the issue of trust. So for team, as a crowdfunding platform, you have to build trust to help gather the support from the customer towards the startups. So what is your journey? Did you encounter any challenges throughout the journey?
Well, when we started in 2012, the word crowdfunding, well actually the word crowdfunding has taken on many turns in the last few years. It's coming from what the hell to really positive, to really negative, to now everybody has an interpretation of it, right? So when we first started, because before this, we were actually investing in what Dominic was saying, but in another skill where we were taking the money from funds from the semiconductor industry and trying to take that experience into so-called traditional manufacturers. And from there, that was why I wanted to try crowdfunding. First of all, it's taken shape a little bit in the US already in 08, 09, and Taiwan has several of the same demands and characteristics. But the first challenge wasn't even trust. The first challenge was, how do you explain it to someone by just talking to them? Yeah, we're going to build this website, and then people just post stuff, and then people give them money, and then we can just do it. Sounds like a scam, right? So my whole point is never try to convince someone. And then, so of course we did it with our own money, and never try to convince the government. What we want is basically create a value for someone to be able to use you. And to do that, it's not about promoting your platform or your brand. It's promoting showcases. So the whole thing, it's really, really hard to earn trust and very, very easy to kill. So every single one, we had to have the first 10 projects lined up across different industries. And how do we do that? We do it the traditional way. And make sure they do well, make sure they deliver well. Right? And then from that, as you keep building, because the core value was we wanted to be as inclusive as possible. So you need showcases from every single industry, and no matter how big or small. And a lot of it has to be social causes too. So let's say we funded about over $1 billion NT. But from there, a lot of the funds come from pots. But the majority of projects or campaigns are these social cases. Both of them are equally important in building trust. So it's a slow process. And I think the key is just, instead of trying to promote your platform, because as a platform, the way you gain trust is you're building it brick by brick, like with showcases. And I think that's the way it should be done with anything we do, especially something new like that. So then after a couple of years, when people started getting to know it, government will come to you and try to benefit off of it, which is fine. So and then from there, because the whole point of us is trying to use the crowdfunding platform and then keep building other stuff. And so it's almost like we're always repeating the same process, but you can see it all growing. Every entity is somewhat profitable, but we're actually added value to the thing, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah. So what do you think are the mistakes or the wrongdoing? It's not really wrongdoing, the mistake of the crowdfunding platforms that prevent it from being promoted and become popular.
Well, like in Taiwan, when we started getting popular, at one time there was about 40 crowdfunding platforms in Taiwan after we started doing it. And a lot of it were just, they're big companies, even like Foxconn had one. We got factories. So you just have a crowdfunding platform. People put up their idea, we have factories, won't make it. But I think the mistake is, my goal was never to build a crowdfunding platform. Crowdfunding platform is a pillar of what I want to build. And a lot of times, so building in terms of mistake, is someone's trying to build a platform. Because crowdfunding is highly localized. It's not really scalable. So as a business, it's not a good business, crowdfunding. It's a good tool. And then in terms of these creators that go on crowdfunding platforms, I guess the mistake that it's actually a fast track product cycle, and you have to come in prepared. It's not something where you just post it and you have to manage it, run it, deliver, do customer service, all that. So it has its risks. Yeah.
Coming to our lady. So Genesia came to Vietnam a couple of years ago and have made several investments, but it is also a time where it became quite competitive because there are a lot of other early stage VCs. So do you think but that's my take, that it's competitive. Do you think it's also competitive, and how do you become disciplined?
You are right. Exactly, Vietnam startup ecosystem is become more competitive and a little bit crowded compared to several years ago. And more foreign investors come to Vietnam, more entrepreneurs try challenge themselves to build the startup. So we have more option, but another investor themselves have more option as well. So it means that the key point for us here is to choose the right one, the one that can have more possibility to grow. Among a lot of options, we need to choose the best one. So that is more difficult for us to find out, especially for early stage focused startup venture capitalists like us, when everything is unclear, uncertain. So we need to know more, get to know more about the market, get to know more about the founders and his team, her team as well. So believe in them, believe in their idea and execution. So we need to find out that's one.
So can you describe what the dream team look like?
Yes, we need to, we really want to find the dream team in the right market,
How can you describe that? Like
the dream team, right?
Yeah, so how is the founder, how decent are the founders, like how big is the market size, or yes, just give some brief description.
Oh, right, okay, and from our point of view, the description about the dream team is that they need to have the strong passion, the expertise, the knowledge about the pain point in the market, and it's better that they have the experience working for several years, for a long time, to really deeply understand that pain point, and always spend a lot of time to find out what is the right solution for that pain point. They have the great strong passion, so that when every time the startup, as you know, is up and down, a lot of difficulties, to make sure that that strong passion always keep them on the road to move forward. And yes, and this passion, expertise, and one of the things that I'm really, that's quite interesting to me when I have the experience and I have the opportunity to look on not only Vietnam startup founder, but also Japan startup founder, Indonesia, because we have 3 markets focusing on investment activity right now. And we understand a really interesting point in Vietnam is that the founder, he or she is really strong by herself or himself. But the team combination is somehow we find out is not strong enough. So to make sure that on the entrepreneurship journey, the founder themselves, they are very lonely and have a lot of difficulties. So to make sure building the strong team is really important to keep them always have the great passion and have the combination to move forward. So the founder, himself or herself, and his team or her team, that is something, the great combination we want to find in the dream team.
And that touches on one issue of valuation. So as Xiaoping has mentioned, the hype and also the illusion about valuation, is there any kind of formula for the founders to evaluate the business?
Okay, great thing for early startup focus VC like us is that we don't spend so much time on due diligence and to find out the right valuation for startup, because the early startup, a lot of uncertainty, and we cannot base on the financial data to evaluate the startup. We almost evaluate the startup based on team, the people in the team, and the market and the deep solution in that market. So we base on that, and of course we have some benchmark for another market as well, to base on that to find out the good valuation for startup. Of course, that valuation should be the number that we accept, should be accepted by the founder and us.
So what do you think, Dominic? Do you have any tips for the founder to like have a right valuation of their own business?
Well, I mean, for ADP Ventures, we don't lead the round usually. We would co-invest with other investors and let the lead investor set the valuation. And that's just generally our approach to it, because in the end, we can bring other additionality to the company, but I don't think ADP as an organization will be best placed to value the company for various reasons. But of course, and the other thing is that if you're talking about entrepreneurs that are first-time entrepreneurs and they don't yet have a track record of having started a business, then really it's, again, ADP Ventures wouldn't normally be looking at those types of businesses, to be honest. We tend to focus on companies that have entrepreneurs that have already proven themselves, that they've gained traction, revenue in a particular market, but they're looking to expand into a new market. And so we can add value in helping them to scale and commercialize that product into another new market. So we're reducing the risk on market expansion, but we don't want to take on too much sort of new technology risk or new founder team risk. So maybe when you ask me that question, I'm probably not the best place to answer for, you know, a young startup that's just starting out. Because in the end, it's, I guess, just answering it very superficially. It's just demand and supply. So if you've got enough people that want to invest in your company for whatever reason, you're going to be able to drive that valuation up. But if there's really no one out there that's willing to take that risk on you except one or two people, you're not really in a position to bargain. So generally, my advice to the really young founders is just look, try to bootstrap your way as much as possible, just demonstrate traction, start showing some results, getting that revenue, because that at least can help you to get a better valuation, rather than trying to raise too much funds too early before you have that demonstration.
So then is crowdfunding then coming in as the viable option for this stage startup?
No, crowdfunding would be a marketing tool to try to drive up your valuation. I've seen people just, well, you guys know, with they'll promote a new product on Kickstarter. What was the famous example? One of those Google Glass things. I forgot the name, but so basically, because of the success of the crowdfunding campaign of the product, the valuation became a lot higher. But one cool thing was, good thing they got merged. They were eager to hurry up and sell, because there's no way they could build the product just based on what they crowdfunded. So crowdfunding shouldn't be a option to raise your capital for your company. It should cover. It's a marketing tool. Slash, it should cover, it lowers your risk of promoting and marketing your company or product. You market your company through your product, right? Just like we market our platform through showcases. Crowdfunding is a good tool for that. But the money part is actually, it's a scoreboard. It won't cover much. So sometimes, if you raise too much money early, and you get overvalued, so your next round is going to stop. But with crowdfunding too, you raise too much money, you have no capacity to make it, basically your company is just going to die. So getting too much money actually kills your company. It's the same in crowdfunding.
Yes, I see. And one question for Zoom. During your time with GENESIA Ventures, is there any missed opportunities or a deal that you have to say no to, but you've been keeping thinking about?
Such a great question. Actually, I have a great experience recently in terms of that. I take it that not of my failure, but it's bring me a lot of lessons learned from that. Actually, half year ago, one founder from Vietnam, the Vietnamese founder, he approached to us, and so we arranged one meeting in 1 hour with him, and it was a B2B purchasing platform, and it just, I guess you know the stuff, yes. And in 1 minute, just 1 hour, it's that time, by the way, it's that time we did not have a representative office in Vietnam like now. We was in Tokyo, and with just 1 hour meeting, it's very difficult to understand the founder, understand everything about the market, the B2B purchasing platform that focus on that market. And so we feel like we need to have more time to get to know the founder. And at that time, a lot of, we was really busy with another deal as well, so the priority was not so high. So we just say no at that time, but still keep in touch with the founders and his team. And when I came back to Vietnam from this October, I started to deal this deal again. Yes, so we get back together, we spend more time on discussing on the strategy, on the growth strategy. And I visited his office and to understand how his team really has a strong passion, really great passion. They even sleep right in the office every day to focus, to push the business goal forward. And I directly go to the market to understand how painful the users are facing every day with a certain market. So I decided that I won't miss this opportunity anymore, and we decided to invest in just 1 week when I came back to Vietnam. And my lesson learned here is that even though when we say no with startup, the founder tend to be so sad and never say hello again, how are you doing again, but please keep in touch and keep us updated. And someday we can get back together, and when we really believe, have more belief in the team and the founder execution, we can get back and together for investment decision.
So do you hang out a lot with the founders?
Oh, we hang out at the office, we hang out at the market to understand the pain point of the market. We hang out to understand more about the founder, the team, and the solution itself.
Because I asked these questions because I read an article about the relationship between VCs and founders in Silicon Valley. And they have some really bizarre, like tailored, luxurious gifts to the founders. I don't think that is happening here in Vietnam, but I'm still curious about your style of hanging out with the founders. So these are the questions for Woodson and Dominic. Relationship, retaining the relationship with the founders. So how do you often talk to them or like hang out with them?
Well, I think the relationship is super important even before you've done the deal, because even before you've done the deal, you've got to really get to know both sides and see whether they think we're a right fit for them as well, both as an organization or also at an individual level. And you know, this year, you know, of course, without talking about specific companies, but that, you know, there were 3 companies in Vietnam that I was talking to, and one company, in the end, you know, we just decided not to go ahead with it, but then that company got invested in, raised the round, and I was extremely happy for them. And you know, and I was, you know, still staying in touch, and maybe there might be a follow-on later that we might do, but in the end, whether or not we go in or they take our money, it's also just the right fit at that point in time. There can be so many factors like the timing of their round, whether they see the value of us going in as an investor, because also as investors, we're competing too, right? So there's lots of other investors that are trying. If you're talking about the best startups, you know, there's lots of, you can be sure that all the investors want to be investing in that company. So in the end, at a human relationship and also the core value of your fund and what you represent, how can you help them? It's not just money, what's the smart money there? But of course, I'm pretty old-fashioned that way, I guess. Like, you know, I believe that, you know, fundamentally any big business relationship is a human relationship. So it's not just about dollars and spreadsheets. You've got to have a chemistry with the founder, and they've got to have a chemistry with you as well. So I don't go on movie dates, and, you know, I draw a line somewhere, but generally I try to be, you know, friendly and honest and open, and to, you know, any company that we're looking at potentially collaborating with. Thanks.
But to what extent should the founders expect the support from the investor, and vice versa? How should investor require to be really hands-on and add value? Yeah, for both of you.
Okay, I will go first. And yeah, we always support our portfolio. Like when we decided to invest, it means that we are in the same boat. We are on the same ship to go on the ocean. Yes, so we need to really have this strong responsibility to support them to move forward by adding a lot of value. And like if they lack talent, we support them in terms of CXO recruitment. If they like a branding, we support them to working with a media company to have some kind of media content on the newspaper or news, online news. Or we support them in terms of strategy, growth strategy as well, by spend days for discussion about that. It means that one thing we always think in our mind is that how to support them, how to really be for entrepreneurs. So that's the question that we always keep asking in our mind every day. So one of the things that really interesting about our VC in Japan is that you can ask your friends if they are from Japan, is that Genesia Ventures is really a VC that reply email or reply messenger very fast. It means that we won't let our founder wait anymore, because we value entrepreneurs' time. So every time when they send a message, we reply right away. We support to make sure they won't wait. Yeah. So
but I want to touch on the other facet of the problem. Like you also want the startup to grow to a certain level that they are not really relying on investors. Yeah. So what should founders? What should not founders expect from the investors?
Okay, thank you so much for reminding your that part of your question is that yes, that is also my point. Or even though we support startup a lot, but it's just a supporting role, and the main role should be from the founder and his team. They should have the final decision and execute it excellently. Excellent. So yeah, this is a supporting part, but we always think and support like a co-founder, but don't let our founder think like we are co-founder. It's like, okay, your main part is yours, we are supporting, but we always have the backup behind this, the founder to make sure that every time if they fall apart, we can take them up. It's look like that.
What do you think, Dominic?
When I have conversations with companies that we may support or may invest in, I try to manage the expectations also right from the beginning in terms of what is it that we can offer as an investor and what is it that we're not so good at or that we can't do. So again, going back to what's the additionality, what's the value of ADB being an investor, it's our network of corporates. So if you're a fintech, we can facilitate open doors to nearly any bank across the entire region or facilitate open doors to financial regulators. But that's what our strength, helping potentially companies to scale across border into new economies. But maybe what we're not so good at would be the hand-holding day-to-day, not babysitting, but day-to-day just support and mentorship to companies, because we're a corporate, kind of a corporate VC. We're not going to have that in-country presence, which is why when we are looking to always co-invest with the right type of co-investor, because there may be complementary investors that are like a family office or local impact fund that can do that. They do have that presence, they can manage day-to-day governance, but then we can complement that through our network. So I think the important thing is always to set the expectation and be honest also to the startup. Look, this is what we can offer, and this is also where we're not so strong and what we can't do.
Do we have time for questions from the audience? I suppose yes. Anyone want to shoot any questions to the panelists here? Is your rare chance to ask them anything. Okay, if no one has any question, then I have. It's a trend questions. So we talk a lot about the collapse of some tech models. So do you think in Vietnam, Vietnam is resilient or vulnerable to those trends? We start with Dominic first. Do you think the Vietnamese startups are resilient or vulnerable to the global trend, especially the recent collapse of some tech models?
That's a tough question. I think I need Bobby here. Well, I mean, if you look at time horizon, there's always constantly booms and busts, but I also look at it that when there's a bust or downturn, there's also opportunities opening up in other sectors too. So I know that's a very shortcut way to answer your question, but sure, of course, there will be certain sectors, certain types of business models that will be more vulnerable to what's going on. But on the other hand, there will be new markets that are being opened through the readjustments or the correction. So, I think it's just the long-term cycle. So.
Yes, and my answer is to be really resilient from this trend. It should be something like focus more on domestic needs and the team themselves. And I guess a lot of people talk about WeWork case, but my point of view that WeWork itself, the business model is somehow is still not profitable. But this scandal of WeWork recently is made from the founder, from the people themselves. So my point here is that to protect Vietnam startup here to be more stronger with the trend outside, here. The people in the startup should be really focused on the business, really focus on the client needs and the solution. At that time, when your service or product still have fun, still have user, you can grow, you can have revenue from that. So be really clear on that. Focus on the right thing, truly matter on the thing you are going with. And I think that is my answer here.
And Tim, yes.
Sure.
I mean, there's also the VC cycle too, so there's easier times to raise funding for VCs, and there's other times when suddenly it all dries up. And I think in the presentation, Yan was making the beginning that VC funding looks to invest over 4 to 6 years and then, you know, get an exit within that time. So there is also this very sharp cycle on the VC side. So that's why I think you see this high concentration of investments in certain sectors where you're more likely to get that exit, like e-commerce, gaming. But other sectors like agriculture, clean tech, they do need more patient capital that can break through these business cycles. And I think it is quite difficult sometimes when you have this boom bust in the VC funding for those other sectors especially.
And Tim, from the perspective of a person based outside of Vietnam, what did you think?
Well, because the way I invest and the things, the companies I invest in is quite different from a VC perspective. So, in my opinion, no matter, it doesn't matter where you are, what industry you are, it's kind of like what you guys were saying, where I think the problem is, as a company, your source of funds, no matter what, it could be sort of capital, it could be revenue, it could be loans and things. One thing that I've noticed, at least in Taiwan, is because of a perceived influx of VC money, a lot of companies have become lazy in building their business or navigate other types of, because you need different types of money. So sometimes for a young company or young founder, I was really shocked to see that they're showing revenue they want to expand, and they've never looked into a loan. That made no sense to me, right? It's like, yeah, we got to expand. VC or bust. It's like, what? Don't you want leverage? So I think the risk is mindset. It's not a stock market. Like in Taiwan, sometimes you'll meet people that are their thinking is heavily influenced by Silicon Valley, but the market sizes and all that is different. So it's actually a horrible thing, and I think it's the same in every country. And so, like this for me, back to what you guys were saying was, it's almost when you decide to pull the trigger on an investment, it's on a team or the person. And one thing that's really hard to gauge now is integrity. I think that's really. But of course, I mean, if you exit in time, their integrity doesn't really matter. But I think that's one thing that's been usually the toughest thing for me now, is to actually get a real sense of what, like, their capabilities and skills are sometimes really easy to see, not hard to see. But if, like the Adam guy from WeWork, I'm sure he's a driven guy, but that's some sketchy stuff he did. So sometimes for me that's tough, and that comes from a mindset that's maybe influenced by other things. And if a growing market already has the mindset of these games, that's the biggest risk, I think. So people's expectations are, and that's why you have to manage expectations with VCs and get invested in. Getting funded isn't the goal, right? It's just a step.
All right, so that's the wrap up. Thank you, Dominic, Zoom, and Tim, for sharing your insights and also the really interesting stories.